got chicken nugget in my throat. Okay. Hey everyone, you're listening to We Don't Watch Movies with me, Monze.
And me, Corinne.
Woo! Sorry if you hear ice rattling. That was me and my drink. Okay. So today on We Don't Watch Movies, we are going to talk about the brand spanking new 2024 Nosferatu movie.
2024 or 2025?
It came out December 25th, 2024.
Okay.
It's a movie I have seen. I watched it in theaters. I had an amazing time.
Mm-hmm.
Corinne has not seen the movie, and honestly, I don't think Corinne should see the movie, so I am very excited to talk about it today. And this is our Valentine's Day episode, apparently, because we're like...
Oh, yeah!
What, yeah. So what is more beautiful than...
What's more
erotic vampire
romantic
love?
than a vampire? Actually, though, what is more romantic than a vampire? Very few things, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're using romantic in its original concept of what romance means.
Yeah. What closely
those
related
literary
to
things
erotic?
are like, ooh, Monty Corinne.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so Corinne, stupid question. Why have you not seen Nosferatu?
Okay. Actually, the reason why I haven't seen it is because I learned it was not in black and white.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Is that when I told you it's not in black and white?
Because I thought it was in black and white, so I might have watched it if it was in black and white, because then the blood looks black. So even though it's like gross, it's not red.
You can just be like, it's just too much chocolate syrup.
Exactly. Literally.
Just messy eaters.
It's just oil, I don't know, but it's creepy when it's black and white, and I haven't really tried to watch a black and white horror movie, but the reason why I think maybe I could is because I had previously done captions for a streaming service, and the proxy video they gave us was extremely desaturated. So I had worked on the first season of Titans, which is actually a pretty violent show. But because it was so desaturated, all the blood was it looked dark, like black. So I was able to handle it. Plus I could kind of scrub ahead to see when things were coming and prepare myself. But the point being, I thought it was just this desaturated look. So I was like, okay, it's not so bad. I guess I can handle it. Then later I saw what the show actually looked like, and I was like, oh, there's no way I could have watched this if it was live, full color. So maybe I might have watched it if it was in black and white. But because it's not, that's definitely why I was like, oh, I can't watch this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why did you watch it?
I've always wanted to see the original.
Uh-huh.
I just never got around to it. I actually did I went to a deep dive after the movie because I was like, I need to know more. So for anyone who doesn't know, Nosferatu is an adaptation of Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was watching, and I read Dracula and I really liked it. I really liked the characters, and so I was like, well, since I already know the story, I don't feel, but I also wasn't expecting it to be too close to the novel, but it was. I thought it was a really good just adaptation of Dracula itself, minus the ending and stuff, which is different. But so when I was watching it, I was like, that character's Jonathan. That character's Mina. That character's Lucy. That's Arthur. That's Van Helsing. So that was a lot of fun for me.
Yeah.
Again, we're just calling out the literary babes today.
Yes.
This one's for you.
This one's for our big-brained book nerds.
That's right. But yeah, so... I don't know. So I've been kind of really just into the Dracula story overall. I've even just been if I were to adapt Dracula, because I feel like there haven't been very good adaptations of Dracula itself.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, how would I do it? So it's just in my brain rattling around.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a fairly good adaptation, but unfortunately, of course, there's never a fucking cowboy in any Dracula adaptation, and I am going to be the fucking first.
You gotta put him in there. You need to put Van Helsing in the Dracula adaptation instead of shuttled off to the side in his own movie. Like, yes, he deserves his own movie, but he also deserves to be in Dracula.
Van Helsing isn't the cowboy.
Well, who's the cowboy again?
It's Quincy Morris.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Then we should, yeah.
And they always make Van Helsing the cowboy type, where he's kind of
they combine him, yeah,
and kind of combine him. And then we're not even going to get into the Hugh Jackman Van Helsing movie, which was a nightmare to watch.
I haven't watched it, but I have been tempted because I like Hugh Jackman. You don't recommend it?
I don't recommend it.
Okay, then I won't watch it.
I don't recommend it. It's not even worth it to see him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're getting into so many Dracula.
We're getting into it.
We're in the Dracula verse.
Okay. The Bram Stoker verse.
Yeah, the Bram Stoker verse, indeed. Okay. So I did try to find a trailer
that I can watch.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I kind of gave some stuff away, but Kareem, what do you think Nosferatu is about?
Okay, so I think I told you because I was excited for this movie, so I had gone ahead and read the synopsis, but that was like a few weeks ago. So, but it's just Dracula from what I understand, but Dracula meets the plague. So people are dying of the plague, and then the Mina character, Lucy, or whatever the fuck her name is. No, Mina and Lucy are different characters. The girl.
Lucy.
Johnny Depp's daughter. Lily Rose. Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Terrible name, Lily Rose Depp, yes.
Yeah. She, does the Lilo and Stitch moment. I saw the meme earlier where she's like, send me an angel!
Yeah.
Which is also a really great 80s song, Send Me an Angel. So they send her Nosferatu instead. Mm-hmm. Which is kind of similar to what is it? That Longlegs movie? Where it's the younger girl sees the killer, and then the killer comes back for her later. He's like, I'm here to collect. So that's basically what this movie is, where he's like, I'm here for you. And she's like, no, give me time. And he's like, okay, fine. And then the time passes, and now he's come to collect. It's like the Rumpelstiltskin sort of story. And then it's just like Dracula. Her fiance goes over there. He gets seduced. I think he actually gets eaten on by Nosferatu. And then he leaves, and then Nosferatu... See, I read the synopsis, but I, don't even remember. I remember he, killed some woman in front of her kids. And then the girl is having these dreams where she's bleeding. And then the ending is she sacrifices herself to Nosferatu, and they have this crazy sex scene, and she dies, but she saves the day. That's what I think happens.
Okay. Sorry while I fix my camera.
And there's the coffin thing too, where they're like, I need dirt, I'm coming to England, etc. That whole thing.
The scene where he says, I need dirt, I'm coming to England. That famous scene.
That scene. Because that was in the original Dracula, where it was he needs his original home dirt for, to put the coffin in. He can't leave without his home dirt. So that's why it's just, boxes and boxes.
He has to sleep on the land where he was,
But they find, a loophole called, let's just get a really giant box and fill it with dirt, and put him in it, and then that's how he's able to go to London to spread his vampiricness. So yeah, that's what I think happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can tell you don't remember a lot.
Well, I'm also like, what do I think happens in Nosferatu versus what happens in Dracula? Yeah, because I know what happens in Dracula. It's just, yeah.
Okay. I sent you a trailer.
Thank you, I received a trailer.
Yes, like I said, I tried to find one that wasn't like scaly, like too bad.
Thanks.
I remember seeing a trailer that I was like, like freaked me out.
Yeah.
And so I tried to find one that wouldn't be too. This one seemed pretty rated PG.
Okay. Yeah, they keep coming out with those Red Band trailers, and I'm like, I don't want that.
And I'm like, what? Well, I'm like, what movies am I watching that I'm getting Red Band trailers?
Other R-rated.
But I remember seeing the Red Band trailer for this, and I was like, oh, whoa, yeah.
Okay, we're gonna make her small. Give me the mini player. There we go. Who's her mom? Is it Isla Fisher?
I don't know.
She kind of looks like Isla Fisher.
I don't even know who Isla Fisher is.
She was involved with Johnny Depp for a while. Oh no, Vanessa Paradis. Vanessa Paradis. I don't even know who that is. Oh yeah, but she looks
during his 21 Jump Street era.
I don't even know. Okay, ready when you are. Why is she looking at me like this?
Why is she looking?
Oh.
Come to me.
Oh. Ew.
Wait, you didn't like it? You didn't like his creepy eyes?
No.
She has a third eye.
What's that guy?
Willem Dafoe?
Yeah.
Oh, that's he may be uncomfortable. On a historical basis. Because they were just like making out in the hall, and I was like, bro!
Oh.
I liked that shot. Oh, in the trailer they covered her boobs, in the movie, in Nipple City.
Oh. Nipple City.
Sorry.
Oh no, this gross guy.
Yeah.
Don't go to him. Ew.
There is a devil in this world, and I have met him.
Great read, Nicholas Holt.
Please me as he could.
Ew. Is she coming? What is happening? Oh.
What is happening? It's so funny. I like this shot too.
That was pretty cool. Okay.
Nosferatu, succumb to the darkness.
Succumb to the darkness. He really is putting the sexy back into the vampire.
Yeah. There was something I saw online that was talking about how... So you know that guy who made that stupid tennis movie?
Yes.
That you told me about?
Yes.
You know, and now he's got like that movie Queer with Daniel Craig.
Yes.
And he did like Call Me By Your Name.
Yes.
And it's like, they're supposed to be sexy, but they don't really give you that feeling like this is sensual in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe we're just so desensitized now because there's like boobs and everything and ass and everything.
Yeah.
You know? Where it's like, okay, like this is probably supposed to arouse something in the viewer.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's just like, you know, I don't know, it lacks the romance or whatever, like it's not as sensual. And I feel like this movie was definitely all up in that sensuality. And I was here for it, even as someone who's just kind of like, there's too many nipples in this movie. But, oh my god, hold on. Remind me, I want to show you. I guess our listeners can't see it because it's visual, but I want to show you the freaking last shot of Lily Rose Depp's nipple, and I want you to see how weird it looks, because I want some confirmation that I'm not crazy that her nipple looked weird in that shot.
Okay.
Okay.
I will remind you. But
okay, good.
But yeah, we have talked about the kind of like what you just described, and I've seen that analysis too. And having seen Challengers, and I guess other queer romance, but even like other, I haven't seen a lot of like.
I'm not even
sexy
saying like
stuff,
queer
but,
romance.
Yeah.
I'm just saying the name of the movie was.
No, I'm saying like just sexy material in general. Because I've noticed with queer movies, there's actually kind of been more of a push on like the wholesome stuff, like they're moving away from sex, which is like for some people I know that's nice, but for other people it's kind of like, okay, but like where is the actual like give me that? But then on the other hand, you're getting like these sexy movies, but there's no like sensuality like you described, even though there's a lot of nudity. And to me, just because like nudity does not mean erotic in my opinion.
Yeah, and I feel like yes, usually it's like, oh, the scene will be still erotic because everyone there is gonna be naked. It's like, no, like that's not how that works.
Yeah. And like I do think Challengers is like sexy and sex charged, but it doesn't feel like sexy in like a like, I don't want to say I'm getting turned on way, because you don't watch movies to get like turned on. It's not a porn, but it's like, but like
maybe you don't.
But like I guess erotic, because it was so like because it was like a psychological like mind fuck, like sort of, like there's so much tension. Like it was actually more sexy when they weren't having sex because of like the tension going on between like the two male characters. But yeah, no, I've seen the analysis that there's been a lack of sensuality, and I blame neo-Puritanism, which has snuck its way into just about every single space, both left and right. That's what I'm blaming personally. It's like we don't have the Hays Code, but we have like society has like this internalized Hays Code of what is appropriate. I mean,
again, if we want to look back to the founding of our country, right.
It's
even
repressed
though you had
Puritan
different
Anglicans,
religious groups and other people, the Puritans were the one who got into those positions of power that then laid down the morals and the whatever. So yes, we can always blame Puritanism. We can always blame John Calvin.
Okay. You can always blame the Protestants.
And the Protestants. Okay. All right. So let's go into the. Oh, did you want to change anything?
No.
Okay.
I think that what I listed does happen. I just haven't listed everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, this is what I wanted to say. So yeah, when I afterwards I was like, oh, let me look up the original Nosferatu. That's what I wanted. To see maybe how close or how different it was.
Yeah.
And the thing that I thought was really, really interesting was that Nosferatu was made to be an adaptation of Dracula.
Yeah.
That the makers were like, oh, we really like the story, let's do it, but they couldn't get the rights, I believe. So they're like, so they told the writers, like, just change things around, right?
It's a
Which
fan
is
film.
why, yeah, so it's kind of like, in a way, it's a fan film, and they're like, just change things around. This is, again, Germany, 1920s, post-World War I. Germany doesn't have money. We get into that German expressionism in a second, but, like, so they were like, even if we could get the rights, we can't afford it. So they hired the guy, and they're like, just write it. And they really like, oh, this is a great adaptation. Like, we liked your changes. They made the movie. And then the Bram Stoker's children, or like grandchildren, one of them, I think it's children, were like, you didn't get the rights. And they went to court, and they were like, and they won. Oh. So they had to destroy every single copy of Nosferatu. But of course, they didn't, which is how we were able to have like a copy of it even today. So I was like, oh, that's so interesting. And of course, you know, me and my little history and film brain, I was like, could you imagine if we lost that? Like,
right?
Oh my God. Right. And that's the thing too, because even during that time, you're like, what, the early, like 30 years into an art form. And you're like, well, this isn't important, so it doesn't really matter if it gets destroyed, you know? But today, it's just like, no, like, all those films and tapes and all that stuff that they were like, well, this will never last, who cares, to get rid of it. It's like, there's so much.
Well, it's like when It's like when the BBC taped over Doctor Who episodes, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's, like, all those that are, like, lost, but it's some of, like, the early ones, and now it's, like, there's a whole chunk of the lore that's missing. Like, it's so interesting thinking about, like, which cultures value longevity over others, because you compare something like, again, the BBC taping over their own shows for whatever reason, or this, where they were forced to destroy all the copies, versus, like, the Egyptians, the ancient Egyptians, who intentionally built these pyramids to last, like, forever. They literally were like, we are building these to last for as long as possible as, like, monuments. And they did. Like, they lasted thousands of years, right?
Yeah.
So, and then even, like, when you compare it to also, like, China or Korea, where it's, like, they are building things to last, and if it does get destroyed, there's, like, a concerted reconstruction effort, right? And whenever things are destroyed that they cannot retrieve, it's usually, like, someone stole it, or it was, like, bombed in a war or something, or whatever, right? But, like, the difference between the ideas of, like, what do we keep versus what can we just get rid of? Like, the short-sightedness versus, like, the long-form thinking, I guess. So it's interesting. But I can't... Yeah. It's crazy to think, what if we never had it? Because in film school, like, literally film 101, film history 101, Nosferatu, you're going to learn about it. Because it's, like, peak German expressionism. Yeah. Like...
Yeah. I know we didn't watch it. We watched The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Yeah. But we certainly learned about it. Like,
we learned about it as in that thing. But it is, like... How many other, again, films in those early years we've never seen, right? Like, it's these ideas, and I don't know. It makes me sad.
I think there was, Jesse and I went to some museum where they were talking about black actors in silent films. And there's a lot that is also lost there that they just can't find anymore. And so they had, like, put together a reel of, like, these two actually pretty active black actors, and I think they had, like, their own black production company and stuff. This was, again, like, early 20th century, maybe even prior to that, and it's like we have so little left of it, you know, because it just didn't get kept for whatever reason. So
yeah.
Yep.
All right. Just want to get into that. I thought it was super fun and interesting to tell you. All right. So the film opens. It's our main character is Ellen. Ellen is Armina Harker character.
Ah, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So thought you were gonna say Ellen is Armenian.
No, sorry. My wife was together. So it's Ellen. She's supposed to be young, apparently. I just assumed she was regular age.
What's regular age?
I don't know. To me, she looks like 28.
Okay.
Possibly. I'm being lenient with that.
Oh. Ooh.
Because I personally, I just don't think white people age well. I think, to me, she looks really old, but she might not be. I don't know how old she is.
I don't even think the actress is 28.
That's what I'm saying, too. Like,
some white people just don't age well. She's 25.
Oh, okay. So, I guess she's supposed to be young.
It's all the filler.
Because they don't give us an age, which makes me personally really upset. But anyway, so she's supposed to be young, and she's like, and this is the part, like, it starts and it's like black and white-ish, right?
Oh, okay.
So she's like, that's where she's doing the prayer, and she's like really sad. She's crying, and she's like, I'm so alone. Please, like, someone, like, I want someone to love me. I need someone to be there for me. Like, I want a friend. Like, can someone please, anyone really, come to me and be my friend? And she gets, like, this, I guess, this vision of some beast and like through her window, and I think that's where we see the shadow of, like, Nosferatu's character. And she, like, runs out the house. There's, like, it's a big looming house and, like, shadows and stuff. And then you get, like, a close-up of her face, and she's, like, doing this moaning, and I was like, is she getting eat out? Like,
that's what I was saying. Is that what we heard in the trailer? I was like, what is going on here?
There's a lot of sex, a lot of whatever in this. And it was, you know, the kind of movie that I was like, I think she's getting eat out. I watched this with my two buddies, Gio and Rufino, and at the movie they were like, no, I don't think that's how. I was like, no, I think she was getting eaten out. I was like, I don't think she's getting I was like, and they're like,
she's
don't
getting
know.
devoured.
There was a
in
lot
another
of
way.
contention between what I saw in the movie and what they saw in the movie. I don't know if they were just uncomfortable about me specifically talking about cunnilingus, but I was like, she's getting it out, my friends. So anyway,
she's getting eaten out. She's being taken out to dinner. She's getting dined in on. Like, it
100%.
is. That's what it looked like to me. That's why I was like, is she coming? Like, what am I listening to?
Yeah,
in the
so she's
trailer?
like giving these like little moans, and
Yeah.
I'm like, she's definitely having some kind of sexual reaction.
The
But then
ecstasy
it
of
sounds
Teresa.
like it goes from being pleasured to sort of like being hurt, like maybe
Ooh.
he's bit her or something.
Ooh.
And she's like screaming, and she ends up like getting like a seizure.
Mm.
And she's like outside the house and like on the ground. There's like bushes, and she's like having the seizure or whatever. And then it cuts to several years later, where I'm like, no, tell me how many years so I can do some fucking mental math to figure out how old she is. Doesn't say. To me, she looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
So I'm like, is this a year later? I don't know. Okay. Makes me really angry.
You just don't know.
Yes. And now it's like 1838.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the change from obviously the time when the movie came out, which is strictly that Victorian. We're here in the 1830s. It's early Victorian, maybe late Edwardian, I think.
Sure.
Sure. I know you're like, whatever, Monze.
I don't know the period, so.
I know
Yeah.
you don't. But it's important to me. And Ellen is recently married. She lives in Wisburg, Germany. And her husband, Thomas Hutter, who is our Jonathan Harker character.
Yeah.
He's has the same job where he's like in real estate or whatever. Same thing he was doing. No, it's not real estate. What is it? Whatever that dumb word is.
Yeah.
And she wakes up and she's like kind of freaking out. He's like, "Are you okay?" She's like, "I'm fine." And she's like still in her Jimmy Jams, or her nightgown, and he's like dressed to go. And she's like, "Where are you going?" He's like, "I gotta get to work." She's like, "No, stay here. I want to continue our honeymoon." And she's trying to like, she's macking up on him or whatever. And he's like, "I gotta go make money to support you, my wife." And she's like, "I don't need it. I just want you here." He's like, "No, I gotta go." He's like, "I need that financial security."
Classic
So he
love
goes-
is blind problems.
Oh, he's an estate agent.
Yeah.
So he is going to work, and he comes in and they're like, "You're late." He's like, "I know, I'm sorry." And they're like, "Well, you're lucky he's not ready for you. He wasn't even ready for you on the assigned time, so just go in." And so his boss is Herr Knock, Mr. Knock, and he's like, "I have this commission for you to go." This guy, Count Orlok,
Count
he
Olaf.
wants. I don't know. Count Orlok. He wants to buy this house, Schloss Grunwald or whatever, and it's like actually pretty close to where he lives, but it's like a rundown mansion. It's like a rundown house. And Thomas is like, doesn't he want a better house? His house is like decrepit. He's like, no, this is the house he wants. He's like, you're gonna have to go see him and bring him the papers and have him sign it. He's like, why can't he just come here and sign all the stuff? He's like, no, he wants you there. But before he left, Helen was like, oh, I don't want you to go. Like, she's like, I had a vision that you were gonna leave me, and I don't want you to leave me because you're not gonna return. He's like, don't be silly, my stupid wife. You know, that kind of thing. Well, he doesn't say stupid, but you know, all men are like that.
That's the vibe. Don't
That's
be
the vibe.
silly, my stupid wife.
Silly, my stupid wife.
The classic hysteria.
Yes, 100%. This movie is just like everyone thinks she has hysteria.
Yeah, it's like, don't be silly or I'll cut your brain out. I'll drill a hole in your forehead.
That's not so later.
Oh.
And so of course Thomas is like, well, I don't know, and Knock is like, you're gonna get so much like money. It's like, this is it's so prosperous that you're here now, like prosperity, whatever, because you're young, you're recently married, you're gonna make good money. So Tom is like, okay, fine. So he ends up accepting, and so he goes home, and he goes to tell his wife Helen, like, hey, guess what? I know we just got married, but I'm gonna go on this trip.
Oh.
But we find out that Knock is working with Orlok.
Oh.
Who is the Count?
So is he like the rat man?
He's Seward. Yeah,
okay,
he's Seward, the rat man. And
Seward, the rat
man. Seward, the rat man.
He's the rat man. The man of the rats.
The man of the rats.
I am the rat man.
And
so hustle culture has gotten
yes,
to
hustle
him.
Culture has gotten to them all.
Think of the commission, bro.
Yeah, think of the commission, bro, but really he's like,
Yeah. Setting him up. This is why
setting him up.
Work-life balance is important.
Yes. So Thomas comes home and he brings these flowers and he gives them to Helen.
Wife.
And it's so funny because she's standing there with these big flowers and he's trying to explain what's going on. She's like, why did you bring me these? And she's like, they're dead. He's like, no, put them in water. She's like, they're just gonna die slowly. And I'm just like, this girl has issues. But so he's like, I'm gonna go on this trip, and she's like, no, I don't want you to go. Like, you're not gonna. She's like, I want to tell you my dream. He's like, okay.
Okay, my
and she's
stupid
like, I
little
need
wife.
to tell you my dream. He's like, no, like, don't. It's fine. She's like, no, I need to tell you. She's like, so in my dream, it's like what she says in the trailer, where she's like, I had a dream that I was getting married and it was my wedding day and I was so happy. When I turned to look at the groom, it was Death himself.
Oh.
But I was still so happy. And we like got married, and again, I'm so happy, and everyone else is like dying. And she's like, and I think she was saying like, he was making love to me and everyone wasn't watching in horror, but I was, the happiest I could have possibly be, right? She's like, this is a sign, it's a bad omen, like, you can't go. He's like, I gotta go. But we sort of find out, because Thomas takes Helen to his friend's house. He's like, you're not going to be alone here in this house. Like, I'll take you, and you get to spend time with Friedrich, who is his friend, played by what's his face?
Willem Dafoe.
Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Oh, Aaron Taylor Johnson. Oh.
Yeah. And then and his wife, who is the Lily type character. I forgot her name.
Oh,
Anna.
okay.
Anna.
Okay.
Okay.
Who is the Dracula version of him? I know who it is, but I forgot the name.
Arthur?
Yes, Arthur.
The fiance would be Arthur.
Yeah.
Lily
is
not
Lucy.
Lily. Anna is I
Lucy.
forgot her name already. Is the Lucy character.
Yeah. Okay. Arthur's who I was.
But in this, they're already married.
Yeah.
They have 2 daughters.
So she dies.
Yeah, and she's pregnant with her 3rd child.
Ooh.
Okay, so you're like, ooh.
Ooh, I know what's coming for her. I don't like that she's pregnant. Raise the stakes.
Yeah, 100%. And Thomas goes, and he's like telling Friedrich, like, hey, can you just make sure to watch out for her, like, take care of her, and you can tell that, of course, Friedrich is wealthy. Thomas obviously isn't, but Thomas, that's what he wants, right? Again, like, Friedrich is the established, this is what I, as a man in this time, in this period, have to do.
Yeah.
The wife, the children, like, the money to support, that kind of thing.
They're the Joneses they're trying to keep up with.
Yes. So they're like, all right, bye. And Helen is like, you need to write to me every day. He's like, I promise I'll write to you every day. And so the children, the girls are like, let's go to bed. And the girls throughout the film are constantly like, there's a monster in our room.
Bruh.
Like, I'm so scared of the monster. And of course, Anna and Friedrich are like, of course there's a monster, whatever. Like, we'll tuck you into bed, whatever, that kind of thing. So that happens, they go. And this is the part where I was like a little disturbed because just from the historical standpoint, like, they're in someone else's home and they kiss, but this is like a full-on, like, they are making out kind of thing. And I was like, in 1838, you would not be making out in the parlor of someone else's home. Anyway. But you can tell, like, even though Thomas is, he is kind of, like, dismissing her, he does genuinely care about her. Like, you can tell, because he is worried about, like, her dreams and things, and he knows that she has this history of kind of being the weird goth girl, right? So he's like, I just want to make sure she's taken care of. So,
this is the baggage that comes when you get a big titty goth girlfriend.
That's what happens sometimes.
Maybe them making out nasty in the parlor is supposed to be, like, weird. Like, it shows how horny they are for each other, and it's not supposed to be normal.
Oh, they're definitely horny for each other all the time. Oh, that's a good point. Either way, I don't like it. So Thomas heads out, and he says it's going to be like a 6-week trip or whatever, just I think even to get there. Yeah. And he just only has a horse. He doesn't even have like anything else. He's just riding his horse to Transylvania. He's in the Carpathian Mountains. And he finds this like small village, and he walks into this village, and one of the like peasant people is like, I'll take your horse and put it over here. And he's like, okay, great. And he's walking through, and I really like the scene and the way this was shot, because you're walking in and like you're seeing like the whole town and like just the way the camera moved. It was great. But and like everyone, like the children are all like going up to him and like begging for stuff. And there's like music playing, and he goes to like the hotel, and he's like, I need lodging, and the guy there just starts like laughing, and then everyone starts laughing, and like, ah! And it's like it was very uncomfortable and very disturbing. But again, these are like the Romani people or whatever. And the hotel lady, he's like, I'm gonna stay the night, and she gives him the cross, and he's just like, whatever. I don't think he puts it on. He just has it.
Should have put it on.
Yeah. And he... you shouldn't have put it on.
One in Rome.
But he's like, oh, I just need a place to stay for the night. I'm going to go up to see, like, Orlok, and everyone in the town, they're like, no, like, you can't see, like, don't even say his name here or whatever. He's like, that's super weird. I wonder what that's about, but I'm not really going to look that deep into it, right? And he goes to bed, and he wakes up in the middle of the night. And he sees, like, people... He looks out his window, and he sees, like, a naked girl on, like, a horse. And all the villagers, and, like, they have, like, the, like, whatever, fire. And, again, we're seeing some boobies here. So she's, like, I'm just like, that's so... And it's cold. See, here was my thing, is that it's cold outside. They're in the Carpathian Mountains. It's clearly winter.
Yeah, winter.
And this girl is naked... He's just messing with the bat.
Yeah.
No. And she's just naked on a horse. Okay.
Why not?
And why not?
She's about to die anyways, so why not?
Yeah, because he's like, what the fuck is going on? And one of the ladies is like, they are sacrificing the virgin or whatever to protect themselves from the Nosferatu. And so Nosferatu here means more like the demon or something. Yeah. It's not like his name. And he follows them, and they see that they are they like dug out a corpse, and they like impale the corpse, the vampire's corpse, with the stake. Oh yeah. And the corpse like moves, and it like vomits up blood or whatever. Ew. Yeah, and that freaked me out. I was like, Yeah, but they do it with an iron stake, so he sees that, and he's like, oh, that's super weird. And when he wakes up the next morning, he, like, wakes up, and he's kind of like, was that a dream? But he looks at his boots, and they're all muddy, and he's like, oh, I guess it wasn't a dream. But, like, he gets up, and absolutely no one's in the hotel. There's no one in the village at all. It's completely deserted. And he's like, well, I guess I'll go. And I guess maybe they also took his horse because he doesn't have his horse.
I see.
I don't think he has his horse. Or maybe he does. I don't know. No, he does, because I remember thinking, what are we going to do with his horse? It doesn't matter. But he just starts heading towards the castle. This is another great shot. He's heading towards the castle, and you can see from so far away, like, a carriage is coming. And he's standing there, and he's looking at it. And there's absolutely nothing behind him. And, like, you could just see, like, the carriage getting closer and closer and closer. And he doesn't move out of the way. He's just, like, kind of there. And it kind of seems like, is he hypnotized by this or something? And the carriage comes, and it, like, turns. And the door just opens.
Mm.
And of course, because he's a dumb white man, he's like, I guess I'll get in.
That must be for me.
Oh, makes sense, right? So he gets in, and the carriage goes up to Count Orlok's castle, right? And he goes in there. He's like, "Hey, like, what's up? Like, are you Count Orlok? Like, how's it going?" And Orlok was like, "Here, come up, follow us." But of course, the castle is like falling apart.
Yeah.
It's, you know, another dilapidated sort of building. So he is a bit like, that's kind of weird. He's like, "Come eat," or whatever. And so they have to like climb up like this staircase, and there's like the only room with a fireplace. And he's like eating, and he's so uncomfortable because he's like, he couldn't really see Orlok, but he can see he's this big guy. He's kind of got like these longish nails.
Yeah.
And we still haven't like seen Orlok's face yet. And so they're eating, and Thomas is asking about like, "Hey, you know, I was down at the village and they didn't seem to like you or this castle." And
what's all that about?
Yeah, like, that's kind of weird, right? And Orlok was like, "Don't talk to me about that," or whatever. But Thomas cuts himself while he's like cutting his meat, and he gets his blood. And Orlok kind of ends up like mesmerizing him, and he feeds on his blood.
Gay.
Oh yeah, I don't know if it's this scene or the next scene, but there's a scene where he's literally like on the ground, laying down on the ground, and you see Orlok on top of him like this, like sucking his blood, and it's definitely like he could just fuck him right now.
Yeah,
he could be literally fucking him. He just needs to move his hips a little bit. I would assume he is fucking him and drinking his blood.
Ooh.
Yeah, it, again, like very, you know, it's uncomfortable because it's like this is clearly erotic for you know, Orlok in this way. And I thought this movie was amazing. So, and Thomas wakes up in like a completely different room, and he's got like these puncture marks, right? And it's not like on his chest. Sorry for.
I thought it was here. Yeah.
Yeah, like on his chest. And it's not like, you know, when you watch vampire movies and it's like the two. Yeah. It's like somewhat like some gnarly ass teeth, like, you know, and it's like, oh, that's gross. And he's like, this is weird. And he starts like looking around.
He's so unconcerned.
He's like, I didn't go to bed with this.
2 open wounds on your chest that you don't know how they got there, and they're like gnarly, and you're just okay. That's weird. I'd be freaking out.
Yeah, and he finds him like later or whatever. And he's like looking around, and Orlok is like, "Come, let's do the paperwork for the sale," right? And they're like doing the paperwork, but it's not in English or German, I suppose, whatever language, you know, Thomas is supposed to know. And Orlok explains it or brushes it off as like, "I'm more comfortable doing business in my language."
Oh wait, these are I know what these are. I remember in the synopsis.
Okay, right? And so he's like, this is the money, like the bag of gold or whatever that you're going to get for this. He's like, sign, and you can tell he looks super weary about this, like, okay. Yeah. But he signs it. But he's just like, of course, this is obviously the translation of the sale for the whatever. No. Idiot. And he has a locket with his wife Helen's hair. Because, you know, back in the day, you would like cut off a piece of hair and put it in a locket. And Orlok is like, "Is that your wife's hair?" And he's like, "Yes." He's like, "May I see it?" And Thomas doesn't want to give it over, but because he's a proper gentleman, he's like, "Okay." And he gives it to him, and Orlok is like looking at it, and he's kind of like with the hair, and he like puts it in his pocket. He's like, "Hey, that's mine." And Orlok is like, "Fuck you, dude."
Mine now.
Yeah, and maybe this is when he attacks him and like starts drinking his blood, and it's like the super erotic thing where we actually see it this time. I think. And even just like Thomas's reaction, it is still a bit kind of like, is he moaning? Is he enjoying this? Right? It is a bit like weird.
Yeah.
And again, the next morning, Thomas is like something isn't like right, and this is when he starts to like try to leave.
Something is not right. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, he can't find Orlok anywhere. So he like wakes up in the morning. He's looking around, and he finds this door, this steel locked door. He's like, I'm gonna try to break in here. Why not? And he opens it up, and he sees a bunch of coffins.
Ooh.
And he's like, okay. And I think the last coffin, I think it says Orlok's name, or maybe it doesn't, but he like opens it and he sees Orlok's gross, disgusting, naked, decrepit body.
Ew.
And he's like, oh my god, that's crazy. And he's like, is kind of walking away, but as he's sort of like trying to figure out what's going on, you can see through the lighting that the sun is going down. So he's like, oh, this must be a vampire. So he grabs like an iron stake that he finds, and he's about to stake him, but the sun has gone down now.
Ooh.
And Orlok like stops him. And he like rises floating in the air, and you see his gross vampire dick with no balls. And I was like, that is disgusting.
Interesting.
And I kind of want to find the image so I can show it to you.
It's interesting that he's castrated, because in Let the Right One In, that entire plot revolves around the girl vampire is actually a boy who was castrated. So it was a castrato. So I'm wondering if there's like a lore thing there for why, or if it's just a coincidence. That's interesting to me. Just because I know there's another vampire thing. Monzi's trying to send me a dick pic.
You should be honored.
Never in my life did I think. You know, that's what the men tell me too when they send me their dick pics.
Oh, you know what? Here's her fucking nipple. Did I like this? I'm gonna like this to save this for later. So I can show it to you. Come on, where is it? It couldn't have been this far deep into my scroll. It's literally just a picture of the actor who plays Thomas holding the framed
Bill Skarsgård
prosthetic.
Nicholas
Here it is.
Hoult.
Yeah. It's the framed prosthetic of his penis in this. No, here we go. Okay.
Are you sending it to me on Tumblr?
I'm sending it to you on Tumblr. Okay.
Alright, let me look at this vampire dick.
Okay.
Alright, preparing myself for...
You don't need to brace yourself that
for
much.
dick.
This is a wild episode already. Like, this episode is so crazy.
Oh my god, ew. It looks uncircumcised.
It is definitely an uncircumcised penis, you are right.
Why does he have like these wounds?
Yeah, so anyway.
You know what this looks like? This looks like that face on the skin in the Doctor Who episode with the toxic.
Moisturize me.
That's
Okay.
what this looks
Yeah,
like.
but so that's the thing about his body is that all of Count Orlok's body is that he looks like a walking, living corpse.
Yeah.
Right? It's not this sort of this idea of Dracula where we're like, oh, he starts off looking grody and then he gets better as he consumes blood, or he's always been hot. It's like, no, he is literally a corpse.
Yeah.
So he is like decomposing, like in the back of his head, like you can kind of see his like brain a little bit.
Ew.
Like his hand, like everything is just gnarly.
Gross.
But he has a mustache, which he takes care of really well. And at the end of the movie, Rufino and I were like, you know, I kind of look like Gio's mustache.
Gio's probably was like, what?
Yeah, exactly.
No.
No. mustache.
What do you mean?
Which I thought was I liked it. I liked the take on his, like, the way he looks.
Uh-huh.
I don't think he looks good as, like, anything other than character-wise.
Yeah.
And he is, like, chasing Thomas, and Thomas, like, runs to the door. He slams it. But of course, wolves come and he starts, like, getting chased by wolves.
Yeah.
Classic Dracula getting chased by wolves. And he's, like, running in the house and the wolves are chasing him. And he gets to the point where he, like, jumps out, I think, the window.
Mm-hmm.
And he falls into the river.
Oh.
And he is found by a group of Orthodox nuns, by a church nearby. And they nurse him back to health.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you know, he's kind of clearly still, like, mentally not well. And he's like, I need to go because he wants my wife. Like, I need to protect my wife. And they're like, you're still not well. You can't go back. If you leave, you'll only get worse. He's like, no, I gotta protect my wife. And he goes and he's like, I'm gonna save you, Helen. Or whatever her name is. Anyway.
Is it Helen or
side,
Ellen?
Ellen.
Okay.
Listen.
Half the time I've heard Ellen, and the other half I've heard Helen, so I don't know.
Because when I was watching the movie, I didn't know her name. I also was like, is her name Helen? Is her name Ellen? And then her friend Lucy calls her Lenny, and so I understood that her name was Lenny before I understood her name was Ellen or Helen, and I was like, who names their kid fucking Lenny? So
I see.
Just a whole other thing. Anyway, back at the ranch, back in Germany.
Yeah.
So this was all just him. We didn't even see them for a while. Ellen and Lucy and the kids and Friedrich, they're all, like, taking a walk by the river or the pond or the lake or whatever. And Ellen's like, you know, she's been having these dark moods.
She's brooding.
And she's brooding. And they're all, like, worried about her, and like, Ellen's telling Anna, like, I feel like there's a presence around me, like, something is here with me, and I don't know what it is, and and Anna's like, it's God, obviously, you know, like, I don't think the presence is God, but okay. And Friedrich and, like, Anna, I keep wanting to call her Lucy, are, like, off to the side, and he's like, she's being, like, super weird, and she's like, I know she's being super weird, but she's my friend, and she's the wife of your friend, and like, we promised we take care of her, and, you know, we haven't heard from Thomas in a while, which is why she's definitely in, like, this mood, right? Like, we just need to wait in here to see what happens to, like, when Thomas comes back, it'll be better.
Yeah.
But during this time, she has, like, she's off, Ellen is off to this, like, we don't see her off screen. And she has a seizure, I think the girls are screaming. And you see her, and she's, like, half in the water. And, of course, like, the seizure, she's, like, her dress is kind of up, and she's like, ooh, whatever. And they're like, oh, no, she's back to being crazy. And they meet the doctor, Wilhelm Sievers.
Willem Dafoe.
No.
Oh.
Oh no, Seward's the doctor, right?
Is Seward the doctor? Who's the Rat Man?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Who's the Rat Man? I remember his name. It's Reinhold. No, something like that. I was literally gonna Google Rat Man.
I was gonna Google the Rat Man.
Rat eating guy.
In Dracula.
Renfield,
yeah.
Sorry, yeah. So the rat guy, Renfield, that's the Renfield character, sorry.
Yeah.
The Dr. Sievers is the Dr. Seward
Dr. Seward.
Yes.
And he's not Willem Dafoe?
No.
Oh.
We haven't even met Willem Dafoe yet.
Willem Dafoe is Van Helsing, then.
Yes.
Okay.
He is the Van Helsing character. So we meet Dr. Sievers, and he is meaning he has a new patient. And his new patient is the Renfield character.
Oh.
and he's being super weird.
This is the knock guy, hair knock.
Yes.
Okay.
And actually, we had seen him earlier.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I forgot. It's not in the thing, but I just remembered. He's like naked in his office.
Ew.
And he put like the like the devil sigil on the ground or whatever, and like the candles, and he's like, "I give this to you, my lord," whatever. Right? He's obviously doing something for Dracula. So clearly, this was all a big plan, and he's gone missing, and they even say that like before Ellen has her like seizure or whatever. Like, I haven't heard from Thomas, and like Knock has gone missing. Like everything's messed up. Like, oh my god, what if he's dead? What if my dream was correct and death came for him?
Yeah,
that kind of thing. So yeah, he has Knock as his patient. He's being super weird and creepy, and he's like, I think there's like a rat on the ground. He like bites into the rat, and they're just like, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the doctor who comes and checks on Ellen. And he's like, well, obviously this is a condition that's happening because there's an imbalance in her blood. We need to bleed her.
Oh.
And they keep trying different things, but she's like sleepwalking. She's having a whole bunch of seizures.
Yeah.
She's moaning and groaning in the middle of the night, and it's all at night, right? And Friedrich is like, I can't take it anymore, kind of thing. And Sievers is like, well, nothing I'm doing seems to be working. He's like, I think I know someone who might help. His name is, like, Von Franz or whatever. And he's like, so you think this doctor can help? That's what Friedrich is saying. And he's like, well, I need to reiterate, like, he was my professor when I was at school, but he is sort of disgraced now and is no longer a professor because he was going into like the occult, and people were like, he's a loco crazy banana pants, right? And he's like, so what are you trying to say? Like, you're just fucking with me or whatever? He's like, no, like, whatever this is, it might be, it's clearly not something I've ever seen before or learned about. So maybe even if his methods are weird, like, we should still check him out. So they go to his house, and they're like, hey, Von Franz, we've got this weird lady is going on. Can you help us?
This is Willem Dafoe.
This is Willem Dafoe, yes. And he is the Van Helsing character.
Okay.
So he comes and visits Ellen, and Ellen is like tied to the bed, and he's like, untie her, how dare you? He's like, but she's having seizures. That's what Friedrich's saying. He's like, I don't care if she's having seizures, you shouldn't do that, whatever. So he's like talking to her. And she's like, doctor, what is it? Like, everything is weird and terrible. And she's telling him, like, she's always had sort of visions since she was a child. And, like, these nightmares. And, like, when she was younger. And, again, they just said, when I was young, I met this demon, this spirit or whatever, and it did something to me. And she's like, I don't know what it is. She does call him eventually, like, her lover. So I definitely, that's when I was like, yeah, I knew it. He was totally eating her out. I mean, it could be, again, they're using it in the term, like the way they did before.
Yeah.
But I still felt like, no, it's definitely weird. What is it? And so after the talk, Von Franz goes to Friedrich and Sievers, and he's like, well, I know what's wrong with her. They're like, what's wrong with her? He's like, she is possessed by a demon, and I think the demon is Nosferatu.
Ooh. And
Friedrich is like, this is why you brought him here for? Like, you freaking, like... And I'm like, chill, Aaron Taylor Johnson. And Sievers is like, I told you may not like what he says, but I think we should listen to him. And he's basically like, I'm not going to listen to you, you're crazy.
Oh, big mistake. You gonna die. Of course.
And because of what's going on, they also see Dr. Sievers learns, like, the boss of your husband who's missing is in my freaking, like, institute. Like, what's going on there? And so Von Franz is like, I think they're connected. So they go to the office, which is now, like, completely empty, of course, because he went missing. Right? Yeah. It's, like, abandoned. And they go to his, like, office, and they find, like, the sigil on the floor. Like, oh, he's in cahoots this guy is 100% in cahoots with that other guy. And they're like, who did he go to see? They're like, they went to go see Count Orlok. So like, oh, okay, so the Nosferatu guy is Count Orlok. So they put the pieces together. Okay, and this is where we get to the Demeter part of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
That was a really good movie. I don't know if anyone saw it, but I liked it.
So you just insert that movie into this part. Yeah.
But Ellen, I think, gets a dream.
She has a lot of those.
That Orlok is coming.
Ooh.
Something like that. And she's like getting kind of worse. But when they are talking about, and Frederick is like, okay, I think he's like, Ellen's still acting really kind of crazy, so I'm just gonna kind of agree with you. Like, I don't really agree with you, but you seem to be onto something, so sure, that's fine. And Von Franz is like, well, I think we might be okay even with what Ellen's telling us, because the only way Orlok can sleep is if he sleeps in the soil from his burial ground, right? But of course, he is on the Demeter, and he is slowly giving the members of the ship are getting a blood plague. So I think he's eating them, but he's also giving them a plague.
Yeah.
So the ship ends up crashing into the Wisburg, wherever they are in Germany. And it has all these crates of dirt, but like hundreds and hundreds of plague-ridden, like just plague rats. And the rats like come off of the boat and just like run through the town, and they're just like everywhere. Now everyone in town is getting the plague. Literally everyone. And Thomas ends up returning to town. Knock goes crazy. He kills one of like the orderlies, and he escapes because he's gonna go, be the servant to Orlok or whatever.
Yeah.
And Thomas comes and he's like, what's going on in this town? And Orlok, no. Thomas and Ellen meet, and she's like, oh my god, you're safe, you're okay. And she's like, I'm feeling so much better now that you're here, right? And he's like, I'm fine, but some weird shit's going on. Like, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And Orlok comes to Ellen in a dream, and he's like, I do not love you because I cannot love. But when you called to me, like when you were a child, again, I don't know if he was a child, like we somehow made a pact, and therefore I there's nothing I can do. Like, I am yours, like, I am yours and you are mine. And also he tells her, your husband sold you to me for a bag of gold. Like, he doesn't even care about you. And he's like, we need to reaffirm our pact from when you were a child, or everyone you know and love is gonna die. He's like, you must come to me within 3 days. Today is the first day. If you do not like approve of this, or whatever, you do not give in, but you will give in, the town will be destroyed, and your friends will be destroyed, and everyone and everything you love. And she's like, no, I don't believe it.
Say it ain't so.
Say it ain't so. And
also, like, if she was actually a child, like, consent of a minor, that's not legally binding, but whatever.
Yeah. And again, like, I don't, if anything, she must have been like 6.
I was gonna say, like, probably 16. Yeah.
Yeah, like, and of course, 16 is still a child, but it's like the way they keep saying I was a child makes me think that she was younger. But the visual, because they didn't use a younger actress, probably because it is sort of this erotic moment.
Yeah.
But they should have at least told us, like, 5 years later or something, where I could be like, okay, I have an idea. Instead of just kept saying younger, or like, when I was 15, or when I was, Yeah. Anyway. So Ellen tells Thomas, like, this is the past. Like, I was so lonely and so sad, and I asked for someone, and he appeared. He's like, and I just, like, I don't know what he did to me, right? But ever since then, like, she was having, like, these, you know, dark visions, and she's like, all of this went away when I met you, when we got, like, you know, like, you were the reason I am okay. And Thomas is like, oh, that's, you know, fine. But this is also, like, the kind of weird moment where she's, like, going a little bit crazy, and she seems to be possessed a little bit, and she's, like, on her knees, and this is a really funny conversation I have with the guy. But anyway, she's on her knees, and her face is near his crotch. Oh. And she's like, he satisfies, like, you could never satisfy me the way he did, or whatever. And literally, he, like, grabs her, he throws her in, like, the satay, and he, like, just rams himself inside her, and they just are, like, fucking or whatever. And then I think she starts crying or having a seizure or something crazy.
What?
And yeah, and it was wild because it literally goes from, like, a switch, like, here's this, like, every single fucking emotion. But again, at the end of the movie,
he's not about
Gio
to be
was
cut
like,
by a vampire. That's what this is all about.
Yeah, 100%. Because Gio was like, did he just go in her soft? He was like, I don't understand. I was like, no, because she was on her knees. Like, I think that, like, got him hard already.
I wasn't even thinking about that.
The conversations we had after the movie were insane, right? I'm like, no, I think that got him hard, and then when she, like, basically insulted his manhood, it was just like, well, let's go.
So he has a humiliation kink, is what
maybe. I don't know. Arafina was like, yeah, I think Monze might be right about that. Like, so, again,
I'm more appalled about, like, he just went in dry. Like,
100%. No prep. It was like, let me rip off and let me whip this out and just jump in there.
Maybe she was ready for him. I don't know, but that
maybe
sounds
she was
uncomfortable.
Wet thinking about Orlok. I don't know. But that whole scene was, again, like, very uncomfortable, right? A lot of the movie is just so uncomfortable, and I loved how uncomfortable it was. And Orlok, like, witnesses this. And so Thomas is still not well. Yeah. So, like, even though, like Ellen and Thomas are sleeping in the same bed, he's kind of like, he will wake him in the night or, like, be repulsed by her or whatever. So she, like, goes to Anna and she's like, can I sleep with you? And I don't know where Friedrich is, but so she's like, okay. So they're, like, laying in bed together. And actually I think this is when, okay, so Anna and Friedrich are in bed together. They're sleeping. And when Orlok arrived that first night, the two ladies were in bed. And when they woke up, Anna had the blood plague or whatever. That's what I'm trying to remember. Okay. So she was like, oh, already, like, my friend is being. Yeah. So then, like, she's sleeping, Friedrich's sleeping, and Orlok comes, like, as a shadow, you know, like the hand, whatever, over the night, I think. And he, like, casts a spell on Friedrich to be like, don't wake up for any reason. Oh. And then he goes into the bedroom of the children, and again, the children keep saying, again, throughout the movie, there's a monster. Yeah. So finally you hear, like, their screams. And Anna wakes up, and she goes over, and she goes to the room, and she sees him, like, drinking their blood, killing them. And she, like, screams, and he kills her. And so
he just drinks her blood, killing her, or
I think so. We don't see. I don't think we see how she is killed, and we also don't see how he kills the children. It's kind of just like the shadows, the noise, the sounds. And again, kind of like what I liked about the movie. It's a lot of it is implied, right? Not all of it, but some of it. Yeah. And so Friedrich, he is, like, so sad and depressed now. And they have, like, the funeral, and it's, like, the two little baby coffins and the big coffin. And, you know, he's like, that was my whole world. Like, why am I, you know, everything is over and everything is terrible. But Thomas and Ellen tells Thomas and von Franz and Sievers, like, he came to me, he told me this was going to happen. Like, like, we need to do something about it. And Thomas is like, well, when I was in Transylvania, the Romani peasantry, they would kill the vampires with an iron stake through the heart. Like, that's what we got to do to this guy. And they were like, yeah, let's do this. And Franz had done some research, and he's like, Ellen, walk me to my home or whatever. So they're like walking out. He's like, you know what you have to do, right? And she's like, yes, I know. He's like, you're the only one who can save us. Like, I was like, I will use this steak killing adventure as like a distraction, but you are the one who has to do this. And he's like, are you? And she's like, I will do this. Because in the book he read, it was like the demon came to her and he like, I don't know, like they basically make love all night and he died at the third crow of the.
She has to keep him up so he burns.
Yeah, basically. And
death by fucking.
Oh, here it's destroyed through a fair maiden's willing sacrifice.
Yeah.
So again, she volunteers, and they're like, "We're gonna distract Thomas." So Franz and Severs are like, "Let's go to Orlok's resting place, and we can find Nock and kill him." But while they're doing this, Friedrich is, of course, he's so sad and so depressed. He's like, "Why am I doing this?" And he goes to like the mausoleum where his family is burned, and he like he opens his wife's coffin and he like kisses her. And when the guys come, I think, to like, where'd Friedrich go? He also had the plague. By this point, you can tell and see.
Yeah.
And he like dies on top of his wife's body, clearly fucking her. I was like, whoa. He doesn't make her feel. And hold on, again, another point of contention between me and the guys, because when we see him, like, she's in the coffin, he's on top of her, her leg is up, the dress is up, and you can see like her bloomers or whatever, right? So I'm like, he was fucking her, and they're like, no, he was just kissing her, and he just died on top. I was like,
no way.
No, I'm like, no, this is some fucking necrophilia. He was fucking her, and they're like, no, she was just. I was like, I'm not gonna get into this argument. I'm like, this is 100% he was having sex with her. So
he was definitely having sex with her. Yeah,
having sex with her dead body, and then he dies on top of her.
Even if he was kissing her, he was kissing her down there, which is still a sexual act. Like, you know, like he was.
Well, he wasn't. He was just kissing her mouth. That's what we saw was him. But anyway.
He definitely.
Yeah, her dress was up.
Yeah, then he would have. It would have been more cunnilingus, you know.
Yes, more eating.
Oh.
Like yummy dead dinner. They're like, oh my god, we can't let anyone see what happened here, and they like burn them, like they burn the whole inside or whatever. Because again, they have the plague, so they're like, well, let's just burn it because we can get rid of the plague.
Yeah.
And so they go to find Orlok's coffin, and they open it up, and Thomas like stabs the corpse in there, but it's not even a corpse, it's Nock. He like stabs him, and he's like, and that's when he realized, he was like, you were tricking me, and he's like, no, it's like, yes, you were tricking me. And they like set everything on fire. There's like a bajillion rats there. So Thomas is like, I need to go save my wife. But meanwhile, Ellen is like in her nightie, and she opens the door to her room, and she's like, I'm repledging myself to you.
Yeah.
And Orlok comes in, and he's like, oh, so yummy, I can't wait.
So yummy.
No. And they like kiss, and it's so grody, because again, his body is like just like a diet. It's a corpse, and it's gross. And they have a whole bunch of sex. And like, you can kind of see the sun is coming up, and he's kind of looking like, I gotta get up, I think. And she's like, no, continue to feed from the blood from my bosom. And he's like, you're right, I'll just keep feeding from the blood. Sweet, delicious blood. And then as sunlight comes in, and it starts to drain the blood from Orlok's body, and he dies.
Okay.
And there's this like shot where it's like her. She also dies because he drank way too much blood.
Exsanguinated.
Like on top of her with his like gross skinny, like, because he's been drained, like his skinny arms and his gross skinny legs, and you're like, it's nasty. And Thomas comes in, and he like is holding Ellen's hand as she dies. And Von Franz like kind of pops up in the back, and he's like, she sacrificed herself to save us from the Nosferatu. We will always remember her bravery and her selflessness. And it's like, and then you see like the shot of her dead body and his dead body, and the end of the movie. Wow.
Interesting.
Uh-huh.
So there's clearly themes of sexual repression and conformity.
Yes.
Pretty strong.
And I think sexual abuse, especially
Sexual
for
abuse,
thinking of, like,
definitely.
her as a child,
Yeah.
like, the grooming aspect.
Yeah. That's 100% in it, for sure. This director has... I want to look him up. Is it Robert Eggers? Yeah. He's done, like, a lot of...
He's done The Northman, he's done...
The Witch and the Lighthouse.
The Witch and the Lighthouse.
Yeah. So he's done... I can't say much of The Northman. I feel like maybe that's, like, his weakest film, I think, compared to, like, the rest of them. But all the, like, The Witch and the Lighthouse, for sure, has a lot of, like, sexual themes, erotic themes in it. And The Witch specifically, like, I read the script for The Witch, because that's another movie I'm very interested in, but I don't think I can watch it. I think I would, like, genuinely find that too frightening, even though some people say it's not scary at all. But it's literally, like, this girl who is...
I'm sending you a picture
of the nip-knot.
Of her nipple at the end. I covered the blood with yellow whatever.
Thank you.
So hopefully you can see, and you kind of see his gross head. But.
Yeah. But yeah, like, the whole point is that she is, like, coming into puberty and becoming a woman, and she's being raised in this, like, Christian Puritan household that's, like, too culty for the cult, you know, and then she gets blamed for being the witch, and then at the end, like, her whole family basically is dead, and she joins the witches and is, like, the whole would thou like to live deliciously thing, right? Where it's like she is unburdened now, right? And that's often what witches were described as anyways. Oh, I see what you mean.
Thank you. Because, again, another point of contention where I was like, didn't her nipples look really weird at the end of the movie?
I think...
like, I don't think so. I'm assuming right now maybe he was chewing on them or something.
Ooh.
But it's like, I don't see, like, is it the areola or whatever? Like, the around it. I think that's what makes it look weird. But also, just the way it looks is very strange.
It looks twisted.
Yes, it looks twisted.
Maybe it's a prosthetic nip-knot.
Maybe it's a prosthetic nip-knot.
Because, like, the thing that, like, makes it look twisted is, like, part of the areola, but the lighting of it makes it look like it's part of the
where I'm
nipple.
like, is that... Yeah, where I'm also like, or is that just the way the shot is? Because, like I said, the shot... is like, it's like she's laying down and it's coming from, you know, the angle of her laying down.
I think, I don't know. I don't want to, like, her body is fine just
I know,
the way it is. But also the lighting is not, 100%. Like, helping, Yeah.
So I just wanted to...
Optical illusions.
Because I saw so many nipples in that movie where I was like, is that... I guess in a way, is this her strange nipple or was this, like, a choice?
Yeah.
Or whatever. Anyway, I just wanted someone on my side. Thank you.
Yeah. I can see what you're saying.
I'm now going to delete this.
It
photo.
looks like a cinnamon roll. Yeah,
It does!
Can you delete it from the message chat?
Hold on. Let me. Yeah, I don't want that in our history. I'm going to delete this here, and then I'll delete it from our thing. I will instead send a really stupid picture that has nothing to do with this.
All right, great.
Delete for everyone. There we go.
But yeah, it's very, like, the conformity thing is really popping out to me, especially whenever this was set, right, which...
1838?
Yeah. Which I believe was a time of, if it was Victorian or Edwardian, Victorians were famously very repressed, even if it was
part of the Romantic
Germany.
era.
And, like, the whole desire she has of, like, I don't want to be alone, send me someone to love, like, in the very beginning, it's very, like, that sort of desire, I think, is heightened if you live in a society that pushes, you're a woman, you must be married. You have no worth unless you're married, right? And, like, love is the only thing you have to look forward to, right? Like, the marriage is definitely going to happen. If it doesn't happen, you're a failure of a woman, right? But then, like, what you ideally want and the only thing you can control is like whether you love the person you're with or not, right? Like whether that's who you end up paired up with, which sometimes you can't even control. So there's like that bit where she's so desperate for love and going about it in the wrong way maybe, but then also because she's so desperate for it, she becomes like the perfect prey for a predator like Nosferatu to get to her and take advantage of her when, you know, when she's at this low place, which that's like what we talked about, the grooming sexual abuse piece of it, right? Where if you're in this society that promotes that as your only way to worth as a woman, or a society that promotes that in general and you feel left out because it's not happening for you the way that you think it should, then you're more likely to be in a vulnerable position and make these desperate choices or fall into these bad circumstances. And then even her Thomas being like, well, I'm the man, I have to provide for you, right? It's like he doesn't seem to be as wrapped up in the societal norms as Friedrich is, because Friedrich seems to like have it all and Thomas is trying to get to there. And even with the whole like, what's her face? Ellen doesn't conform, right? She's weird. She's got these seizures. She's gloomy. She's not like the typical woman. She's newly married. She has no children. She has this dark past. She's like completely opposite to Anna, right? But then even Friedrich, who seems the most like uptight and conformative of all of them, performs necrophilia on his wife. And that really feels like repression of these sexual, like we see the product of their sex, but I don't know how much like romance we see
also,
between them.
Like how much, because Anna also talks and Friedrich talks about, and Thomas makes a joke like, oh, you know, you're always, you know, so I'm like lovey-dovey with your wife or whatever, and Friedrich is like, I can't keep my hands off her, and even Anna's like, you're always, you know.
Yeah.
So it is a bit like how much of this, again, is his sexual, like, sort of appetite, as well as, like, how much of her and his children and his family is, like, an object for his standing in society, as opposed to how much does he see her, like, as a person. Yeah, because I was like, when I came to that, I was like, whoa, that seemed to come out of just absolutely nowhere. But I think if you stop to think about, like, well, who is he? What has he lost? You know, that kind of thing, where it's like, okay, I can see why that would be like, I am, even in death, she is mine and I am claiming her.
Yeah.
Right? This kind of thing, so.
Yeah, exactly. Because, I mean, there's the whole power dynamics that come into sex, right? Because sex as violence is less about the romance, obviously, part. It's all about power, right? It's power and control. And that's why sexual violence is so, like, awful, right? Because it's power and control, but it's also tied to, like, emotion and et cetera, and the vulnerability. So, like, erotic novels, especially erotic horror, plays with the dynamic and the polarity of sex and romance, of, like, pleasure and pain, control and vulnerability, right? Power and subservience.
It's essentially the two sides of the same coin,
yeah.
right?
Depending
on how you flip it, yeah.
Exactly. So that's exactly what it is. So which is why, like, vampires is such a good vehicle for romance, because, like, I was about to say, what's more romantic than getting your blood sucked by someone? Many things, but there's something very erotic about it, right?
I don't know, Corinne. There's nothing more erotic than getting my blood sucked.
Yeah. Well, because it's like you're being penetrated.
No, yeah, because it's like and you need blood to, like, it's so integral to survival that it's like you are literally giving yourself, a piece of yourself to someone. Or it's being taken away from you in sort of the same way that, like, when you talk about sexual violence, right? Yeah. It's taken away from you versus I'm giving this to you. Yeah. Right? Like, no, I agree.
Exactly. And, like, the way that you get it, too, like, the whole neck thing, that's very, like, erotic. Because it's like, you get kissed there, so then it's like, oh, you're going in for the kiss. Oh, no, you're going in for more than a kiss. Oh, now you're, like, eating me, right? Like, it's, like, the switch from, like, erotic yes to, like, erotic no is very, like, you know, it happens, like, in a second, right?
Yeah, it's just, like, a flash. It can change, right? Yeah, 100%.
And it's interesting, too, like, Nosferatu appears to not have scrotum. So he's not like, quote unquote, he doesn't have a complete set of genitals and has effectively been castrated somehow, right? Which often is seen as an emasculated thing. But then he is cucking this other guy to get his wife. So he's emasculated this other person, and he also just, like, he makes up for the lack of, like, if we get into the psychological, whatever, borderline Freudian stuff, he, like, makes up for what he sexually lacks by feeding on your blood instead and deriving erotic pleasure from that, which I feel like is similar to how certain serial killers, like how they get their socks off when killing people sometimes, because a lot of, like, for some of them it is tied to sexual pleasure too. Because again, it's about, like, the control and the power dynamic.
Yeah.
So, and it's interesting how Ellen has to save the day by using sex in a way that kills the scary male monster. But then she also, you know, she dies at the end too. So it's kind of like she's taking back her sexual power. And yeah, like that seems to be what that's about. Yeah. In a world where she has limited power in general. That's like the one thing she has.
And I was gonna say, just like, even like there's a line where Franz tells her like 1,000 years ago you would have been like a high priestess kind of thing. Like, she has this power, but because of the society that she is in, right, she is not viewed, or like what makes her special, you know, just doesn't make her special in the society. It makes her something else. So again, like at the end, because she accepts who she is and what she can do and what power she has over him, that's why she's able to achieve whatever it is that she's trying to achieve, right? She makes her goal, even if it is at the cost of like her own life. Yeah,
exactly. Like, hearing about her, it was kind of like if she was alive like 100 years after, like, she wouldn't be having like 100 or 200 years after. Like, she's in the wrong time period. Like, it's very like she doesn't fit in, which is the conformity thing, right? It's like she doesn't fit in. So does Friedrich and Anna have like a very sexual relationship, or are they very like
not
restrained?
Like what we can see? Okay. I mean, like,
compared to what we see of like Ellen and Thomas.
I think because, again, like, Friedrich it's about appearances. I think we see that too in their relationship. Like, they're never like macking on each other. Like how I keep saying macking today, but right. I think you can tell he does genuinely care for her and love her. And like they are close, and even like he does take care of the kid, like the girls, and he'll read to them and whatever. So, but it's not like when we saw Ellen and Thomas like having a full makeout scene in, you know, the hallway.
That's
like,
what I'm saying.
Like, we're not seeing that, but we are seeing that they are like, you know, they do care for one another.
Yeah. Well, that's like the point I was trying to make, where like it seems that we see Ellen and Thomas making out and having sex frequently throughout the film. Like, they're very, which just because we're seeing it doesn't mean that they're overtly about it, but I feel like they kind of are.
It's like, it's implied that they are.
That they're like very sexual. But then it also sounds like Friedrich and Anna are not, we don't see them having sex except for when he fucks her dead body. Is that accurate?
Yes, but I would also say that it is implied through just exposition that they do have a sexual. Now I'm just getting uncomfortable. Like, they do have like a sexual relationship. Right. Like, just of the way they talk about like that.
I mean, the reason I'm asking is because if they're supposed to represent being repressed or what typical society is versus, like, is that a foil to the difference?
I think you're there.
Yeah. So, but interesting. Yeah, I'll never watch this film.
I didn't think you would.
No. Not for the sexy parts, for the violent parts, the gross, disgusting. It's like she literally made a deal with pestilence.
Uh-huh.
You know. But anyways, Any thoughts you have on the movie that you want to share? Especially from a historical standpoint.
From historical. Okay, also, I said Edwardian, and I was wrong. Edwardian is the early 1900s. I knew it wasn't right when I said it. And the Victorian age starts exactly in 1837.
Oh.
And this is still kind of into that romantic era.
Yeah.
So, sorry for my historic girlies and boys. Okay. Well, the one thing I really enjoyed about the film was that it kept, I feel like, a lot of that German expressionism in how it was shot. Mm-hmm. Like, there are some scenes that are just similar, like, you see his shadow, like, going up the staircase, but you don't see him. Or, like, the hand's shadow over the town as, like, as the plague spreads, like, you kind of see, like, you know. And which I really enjoyed, because, you know, I think German expressionism was, it was a thing, especially in film, because no one had any money, so you had to find new ways to do things, right? Mm-hmm. You had limited budget, limited setting, different things, and it was more focused on, like, the feeling and your feelings. Mm-hmm. And so I think this movie does a really good job at setting, like, the tone, creating the mood, mm-hmm. and manipulating your emotions and your feelings for each scene. Mm-hmm. Like, there is a scene where it's like you like, it's a typical jump scare setup where, like, Anna's in the hallway with, like, the lamp, mm-hmm. and she hears something or sees something, like, and she's, like, turning and looking around, and it's like, yes, I am scared because there's 100% going to be a jump scare here, mm-hmm. right? But also I'm like, he could be there, right? Mm-hmm. Like you kind of feel her unease, right? Yeah. It's not just like there is a murderer behind the door with a knife, he's going to get you. It's like the children are constantly saying there's a monster. She mm-hmm. just tucked the children away in bed. Ellen is having, like, these crazy seizures. Thomas is just back and he's acting weird. Like, yeah, like, it's just, the entire movie I was so tense and so nervous, mm-hmm. and I think it does a really good job of just, like, making you feel certain ways in different moments and having, like, this huge, like, and it's disconcerting. Like, almost everything is just, like, that's uncomfortable, mm-hmm. right? And I know some people are like, I don't like being uncomfortable, but it's like, no, like, you're supposed to feel things when you watch movies, right? Like, there's a difference between, like, I'm uncomfortable and therefore I do not like it, and I'm uncomfortable and knowing that is literally what the director wants you to feel, right? And so, I think it was, like, just cinematography, like, storytelling, all of it, pacing was, like, very masterfully done. Mm-hmm. I don't know, I just really liked it. I think a lot of, like, historical accuracies, which I really, really liked. Even if I'm just like, you wouldn't be making out in the middle of the hallway, but since we talked about it, yeah, it does make sense if we're talking about looking at their relationship and, like, you know, versus the repression of the society. Yeah. But, yeah, I really, really liked it. I think it might win some Oscars.
Probably cinematography.
Definitely cinematography. Possibly, like, the script, so adaptation, adapted. Yeah, I don't know. And I think, sound. I thought the sound was really good. There's just, like, even just, like, the sound of him, like, drinking the blood, like, you know, there was just so much different, like, sounds that I'd be like, what's that? Mm-hmm. What's that? Like, what was that? Mm-hmm. So I just, I really enjoyed it. I thought the score was pretty decently spooky. Mm-hmm. So I enjoyed it overall. It was a great experience. I would probably watch it again in 10 years.
It's one of those.
Because I was scared. I was uncomfortable. But I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Those are my thoughts, I guess.
So what would you rate it?
I give it a 4 out of 5. Not a 5 out of 5, because I will not watch it, like, tomorrow.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. It was a great experience. I agree for some people who are like, you know, I don't think it's not a good movie, but I do think it's not for some people.
Yeah.
Who might be expecting, you know, this one thing and getting something completely different.
Yeah.
But yeah. And and I know you said it's not in black and white. There are moments, especially where it's like Ellen in the dark, or like with Nosferatu, with Orlok or whatever, where it is kind of like that black and white, but the colors even throughout are kind of muted.
Yeah.
So even though it's not all black and white, it does sort of have the feel of a black and white film.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. I think The Lighthouse is black and white, actually.
Yeah, that one is all black.
I've been debating whether to watch that one or not. But yeah, I'll give this movie a 4 out of 5 because this movie is not for me. But I can appreciate it, and if it was a book, I would definitely be reading it.
It is a book! It's Dracula!
No, if it was like its own book.
I know.
Because I've read Dracula, and I really did enjoy Dracula, but if there was like an adaptation of this specific movie as a book, then I would read it. Or a graphic novel. I would also read a Nosferatu graphic novelization of this movie. But yeah, I'm never gonna watch this movie.
Okay.
Cool. Well, Monze, where can they find us?
You can find us on Instagram at We Don't Watch Movies Pod.
Oh.
You can also, if you're just like, I don't care about your podcast, but I care about you because I love your personality. Fantastic, amazing. You can follow me on Instagram at Magic Monster. Kareem, what about you?
You can find me on Instagram at Korean is Korean, but I hope you will listen to the podcast too.
No, it wasn't like you don't want to listen to the podcast. I meant like if you don't want to follow our Instagram for some reason.
Follow both. Listen, follow all three.
You know what? You're right. I'm not doing this well.
Yes, and.
Yes, and.
All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for waiting patiently. I think this will be the first episode after my hiatus, my break. And yeah, we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.